So I am completely loyal to Infiniti as far as a car. I love Infiniti. I will be with Infiniti for the rest of my life. I love everything about it. I love the car. It's a great automobile. Buying it was a beautiful experience. So let me tell you what happened about a year ago. About a year ago, I went to buy my second Infiniti ever because I drove my first one for 8 years, loving every single day of those 8 years. And so last January, I went on the lot, and I bought a new Infiniti, and I bought this one. My son, Will, was with me. He's 6 years old, and we nicknamed that car the Batmobile. And we drove the Batmobile home, and the next morning, we went out to drive the Batmobile, and the Batmobile wouldn't start. It wouldn't turn over, nothing. So no problem. I called up Infiniti, told them about the problem. They rushed out. They brought a loaner, and they towed the Batmobile away with Will crying. And they said, well, we'll fix the problem. Sorry about that. Well, 2 days later, they fixed the problem. They called me up. They said, Mr. Combs, nothing wrong with the car. The battery was dead. So we went ahead and we just put a brand new battery in the car just in case. Maybe it had been on the lot too long. Your car is fine. So I picked up the car, and we drove the Batmobile around again. And then 2 days later, I went out, and the Batmobile wouldn't start again. But I love Infiniti. I'll be with Infiniti the rest of my life. And sure enough, Infiniti was there 45 minutes later, and they had brought a new car for a loaner, and they towed away the Batmobile, and Will cried a little bit. But 3 days later, they called me up. They said this, Mr. Combs, this time we did a thorough check on the car, and don't take this wrong, but the car's got a computer in it. It's tracking everything that's going on, and don't worry about it. But the problem is you're not turning off the car. You got customers sometimes that are absolute idiots. My wife loved this news. She started phoning friends. My husband's not turning off the car. He's actually capable of getting out of the car and walking away while it's on. That's my husband. I've been dealing with him for 20 years. Welcome to my life. But they were so nice, they didn't want me to feel bad. But I did feel bad. I had wasted 2 automobile tows and a car battery and all their time. So I went to pick up the Batmobile all refreshed and fixed, and I took a box of donuts. And I walked into that store with my head hung low, and I said, I am so sorry for wasting your time. I will pay more attention. And I gave them a box of donuts. They said, it's no problem, Mr. Combs, whatsoever, no problem. And so I drove the Batmobile home with full confidence now that I just needed to pay more attention. And Will, my little son, he's so cute because he's going through the whole thing with me. He's like, I believe in you, Dad. I'll help you remember to turn off the car. 6 days later, I was at a coffee shop, and I walked out of the coffee shop after being in there for about an hour and a half, and the Batmobile wouldn't start again. And that is a hard phone call to make to Infiniti, because they already wrote all this stuff down about me, right? Doesn't matter that I brought them donuts. Somewhere in their file it says, careful, idiot. So I call them up and I go, I don't know what to say, but the car didn't start again. I mean, you told me I didn't turn it off. I think I turned it off, but I'm not sure I turned it off anyway. We help him fix the problem. They said, no problem, Mr. Combs. He's like, listen, I'm going to do a real thorough check of this. You brought this in 3 times, so he does a real thorough check. He calls me a couple days later and he goes, you're not turning off the car. And then he says, this is one of my favorite all-time lines I've ever heard of out of a grown man's mouth. He said, did we train you to turn off the car? When you bought it, Mr. Combs? I said, well, Adam, as a matter of fact, you didn't. Now, I just presumed you didn't train me to turn off the car because I had been driving an Infiniti for 8 years, and it was the same button. He goes, well, listen, it's on us. It's our responsibility. We probably should have trained you to turn off the car. So when you come in to pick up the car, we'll just train you to turn off the car. I said, I am not going to miss this. So I drove down there. This time I'm in a good mood, and a grown man says, come on, Mr. Combs, I'll show you how to do it. I said, I can't wait. We sit down in the Batmobile, God, I wish he could have been there, because the grown man turns to me and he goes, all right, Mr. Combs, this is how you do it. You see that button right there that says on, off? Yeah. It's all right. You press it like that. I said, could you do that for me again, please? And I drive the Batmobile off the lot. My wife is calling people she hasn't talked to for 10 years now to tell them that this is how dumb her husband is. And I'm like, you know, honey, I got a sneaking suspicion, though, that maybe I am turning off the car. That car is broke. She's like, no, honey, your brain is broke. So, anyway, it happens again. Yeah, that's my wife. Now, this is a real low moment in my life, as you can imagine, right? Because even Will is losing hope. He said, I believed in you in the beginning, Dad, but I'm starting to lose hope. So Will and I together decide to have a 3-point plan. So every time I got out of the car, I said, point 1, I turned it off. Will, check me on it. He said, check, you turned it off. Point 2, step out of the car, close the door. Point 3, look back in the car. And when we did that, I looked in the car, and the car electronics were still on, even though I had turned it off, and Will confirmed I had turned it off. And I went, oh my gosh, the car is broke! The car is broke! Woo! Woo! So I called up Infiniti and I said, this car is a lemon. Apparently, that is like pulling a fire alarm at Infiniti. I immediately got a call from Nashville, where their headquarters is, and it was a lawyer. He said, we understand you think that you have a lemon, Mr. Combs. I said, let me tell you. He said, no worries. He said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to send out an investigative engineer to check out your car. I said, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I wait 3 weeks with a loaner car, and then they called me back and they said, Mr. Combs, I promise you, the car carries a sophisticated computer. We've looked at it every way possible. It has an exact record. You're not turning off the car. So we've ended our investigation. We have replaced the battery in your car again. No problem whatsoever. You're welcome to go pick up your car and return the loaner. So I'm completely defeated. I guess I'm the problem. So I go into Infiniti with my son, Will, and we drop off the loaner, and I feel embarrassed. And you know, the only person in Infiniti that has talked to me through this whole thing is actually Adam in service. So he goes to get my car. Half an hour later, Adam comes out of service, but he's looking at his shoes when he walks up to me. Mr. Combs, we're going to put you back in the loaner because your car wouldn't start. I said, Adam, did I train you on how to turn it off? And the very next day, the lawyer in Nashville called me and said, we are going to buy back your car, Mr. Combs, because it's a lemon. I love Infiniti. I will be an Infiniti driver till the rest of my life. Lemons happen, right? So I go in to get my check for the thing, and I'm really looking forward to speaking to the manager and letting him OPOG me. You know what I mean? And so I walk in, and I walk into the service desk, and the manager isn't waiting for me. And Adam in service just actually points to this little room I hadn't noticed before. Picture an empty room, almost like a broom closet, with a bare light bulb. It's really close to that, honestly. And I walk in there, and there's a man waiting for me who doesn't work for Infiniti. He says, do you have a driver's license, a separate piece of identification? Sign this paper. Here's your check. And he gives me my check. We're done. He doesn't care about my story. He doesn't know my story. I got my money. So then I walk out of that little room, and I really want the manager to be there. I want him to be there and say sorry and talk to me about it and offer me something really special because I'm going to drive an Infiniti off the lot. But he's not there. So I go look for him, and I find him in his office. And I go into his office, and I sit down with him. And when I walk out of there, I buy a new car. My new BMW. Man, all that loyalty down the drain. Why? Because I think it went like this. The sales guy, who I really bonded with and is the reason why I bought the car unexpectedly that day, once he sold me the car, he was out. He never cared about me again. But I thought we had a relationship. I had left him voicemails because I thought he'd really want to know that my car was dying. But he didn't. He just wanted to know I bought it. The general manager, I can only guess. What was he thinking? That's okay, the service department has it. The service department is fixing it. It's a broken car. What do I have to do with the problem? The service department, what are they thinking? We're doing our job. We're reading the computer. We're fixing the car. But what did I really want? I would still be with Infiniti if the sales manager had just returned one of my phone calls and said, I'm so sorry you're having a problem with the car. Let me know whatever I can do for you. Call me. Or if the general manager had been waiting, even if he had been absent the entire process, if he had been waiting for me on the day I walked in, fully knowing that I'd had a problem for 3 months, fully knowing I would be in need of a new car, he was asleep at the wheel. And maybe if Adam, who was really a great guy, maybe if Adam in service could have heard beyond the specifics that the computer were telling him, and he could say, who should I bank on? As my customer, the computer or this person? And sometimes that's the hard thing, is we're doing our job, but we're blowing the relationship because we just can't see our part. It kind of reminds me of this. Sometimes you run into this, right? This is a red book. See my red book? This is a red book. This book has a red cover. You see it? This book has a red cover. You see it, right? I see it. This book has a red cover. Right? So until we can really learn every time that maybe the most important thing we do is we get into our customer's situation. We throw out our job description. We throw out what we think is going on. We throw out what the data is telling us. And we just sit down and say, tell me what you're experiencing, because we are not in a business transaction. If you want to wow people, if we want customer loyalty, if we want raving fans, we got to get down to meaningful relationships. And that means doing the hard work of saying, tell me what's going on, what are you experiencing? I really want to know from your perspective, and I'll put all of my perceptions and ideas on the table. Does that make sense? All right, give a one clap if that makes sense.